Hello, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to make a follow-up video about the Pekin 1165 sample that FTDNA has made a change to that I think is incorrect. Um, just to recap, this sample Pekin 1165 was one of the 10 male samples that were analyzed from a cave in Upper Galilee, or these remains were found inside of ossuaries, and 9 of those 10 samples were found to be Y haplogroup T. The other one, by the way, was haplogroup E. All right. Anyhow, they had decided to revisit this particular sample, not the others, only this particular sample, Pekin 1165, and compare it to new data. And when they looked at the new DNA data available based off of, expanding database with new customers, they found that it was positive for SNP T-FT13419. That's the image that you see on the left. These are side-by-side screenshots of what they had before and what they have now. So that was a little problematic, and I had brought it up before, and I had called them and I had told them that both statements can't simultaneously be true because the sample dated to 4500 BC, and this mutation is dated to have emerged 600 BC. Okay? Anyhow, on the right, you have the new update where they say that that mutation disappeared. It disappeared, guys. So now it's no longer positive for that mutation. Instead, it's positive for T-FT13840, which emerged, according to the human Y chromosome tree, 1950 BC, which is still a contradiction. This still makes this fossil a time traveler. He traveled into the past and died, right? Of course, I'm not being serious, but yeah, and I want to show you why this is not acceptable and why they're incorrect. And I'm going to give you a couple of analogies, and then I'm going to show you on the FTDNA database, and then I'm going to show you on the YSEC database that I have testing in for individual mutations. Because, by the way I got to the point where I tested with YSEC is because from my 23andMe test that I tested for a mutation called T-CTS 8512, well, when I did my testing thereafter at FTDNA, they told me that I was in a mutation that was, further upstream, not downstream, right? So they took me backwards. And they even brought to question 23andMe, right? And my common sense as well. Because later I said I was positive for other branches that they told me I wasn't. So I purchased, after the STR 111 test, I purchased, I think it was called 154 SMP or something like that they had at the time, where they would test 154 single nucleotoid polymorphisms. And I predicted myself to be on a certain branch, and so I wanted to make sure that I was tested for those, that number of SMPs that they were going to test, to please include the ones that I predicted myself to be in. And of course, I called in, and the person that got on the phone from FTDNA brushed me off like I'm crazy, like, of course it's going to be like please, I don't even need to check that, you know. Just, and they were wrong. My test came back, and those mutations were not. They told me I was at a place on the tree that I didn't believe to be correct, right? Just a little bit of upstream of what I said I should be. So I called back again, and I told them, listen, I wanted this tested based off of my STR values. And they brushed me off. They told me that it doesn't work the way that I said, that I wasn't positive for that, you know. And so that's how I went to that DNA company called YSEC, because they can test individual mutations. They offer to test individual mutations. So I did that over there, and I found that I was positive for those mutations. And then I went and spent the money to do the big white test to find that I was correct. So I say all this to say, don't take what they say as Bible, because they're wrong. They're not, take what they say with a grain of salt. That's all I'm saying. All right. Now, these are the analogies that I want to give to you. All right. If they discover, for example, an island, hypothetically, they discover an island that they believed to never have been touched by humans ever, completely isolated in a place that humans never made it to, right? Hypothetically. And archaeologists go over there and start finding, digging and finding different animals, fossils and stuff, and they find a human. Let's say he's Y haplogroup T, or whatever, any human, right? It was found. The human remains, the human fossil was found. They cannot later come and say, well, in a more extensive study, we have now excavated 15 more acres, 1,000 more acres on this island and haven't found humans. Therefore, humans have never been on this island. You can't do that, you see, because you may have not found it, but it already has been found. It already was found. You understand? It's already settled, right? So if you're looking at a degraded ancient sample for a second time, and you don't, for some reason you can't get to that level of resolution and don't see that mutation, doesn't mean it's not there. It already was found. It already was found. You understand? It was found. So even though you don't have that level of resolution now, doesn't mean that it wasn't found already. They already reported and published that it was found. Okay? So, and they'll say no because it could have been presumed. No, you can't presume that way. And here comes my second analogy, and I'll show you in a different little diagram that I made myself. This is from, what you're looking at here on the screen is straight from FTDNA. On the left before, on the right after. Mirror images, right? Well, not mirror, because they made a change that I think is wrong. So this is my second analogy. If you're tracking someone that was leaving a breadcrumb trail, right? They're leaving a breadcrumb trail. And that breadcrumb trail suddenly stops, but picks up again 20 yards ahead. All right? And continues. You can presume that person that you're tracking passed through that space of 20 yards that doesn't have any breadcrumbs. You could presume that he did. He didn't teleport, right? He walked through there, obviously, right? So you could presume that. But if the breadcrumb trail stops and doesn't pick up again, you cannot make any prediction of where that person would be further ahead. You simply can't do it. All right? Now I'm going to explain it. Let me, bear with me while I change screens here. Give me a second. Let me pause this for a second. All right, we're back. Here I have an organized chain of mutations in Y haplogroup T. All right, and I'm going to show you from FTDNA. You know, they're all in order and they're proper. Let me show you real quick. Okay, here in the FTDNA website, this is my account at FTDNA, and here you'll see all the mutations, right? The green, some are yellow, some are red. So, you know, the green ones are that I tested positive for those mutations. Red is negative. You know, some of them are presumed. You may be presumed to be positive for, because you pick up on the other side. So, for example, here, I'm positive for T-L454. They didn't test T-L208, but I'm presumed to be positive because the subsequent ones I'm green for. You see, I'm positive for. All right? So let me switch back to my little diagram I was showing you. Okay. So this is what I'm saying. I listed all these mutations. And by the way, I'm going to show you from my YSEC account what it means to have one of these mutations, like what it looks like, what it means. All right? For example, T-M184. That means that on the Y chromosome, there is a location, a specific location identified that has a specific change of amino acid that classifies you as T-M184. Every man that is Y haplogroup T at that specific location has that change in amino acid, right? And I'm going to show you an example of that in a second. But I tested all the way down to, I'm a little further than T-BY189634. But this is what I mean. Pay attention. Look, I'm going to move T-L906 to the side. Let's say that change, they didn't detect it. But if I have these other mutations subsequent, then that means that I'm presumed to be positive for this. And it doesn't matter, even though for some reason in my particular genome, in my Y chromosome, that change reverted, but it still means that one of my ancestors used to have that mutation, and for some reason it changed. But I'm presumed to be positive for it because I have the subsequent mutations, right? However, if I do have this mutation, but I don't have these, right? The breadcrumb trail ends at T-L906. I cannot presume into the future. I don't have that information, right? That's what I'm telling you. Now I'm going to go to my YSEC account. Give me a second here. All right, here we're in my YSEC account where you see the dates that I purchased these kits to test those two mutations. T-BY189634 and T-Y61099. And basically, it's telling you here the location. We're going to look at the top one here, 296-70-16 to 296-70-16. So basically, it's the same. It's like a specific spot. Not a sequence of amino acids, but a specific amino acid. You understand? That changed to T. And I'm positive for it because in my kit, it showed that I do have that change to T. Just to let you know, it used to be A, and it changed to T at this location, 2967016, right? Now, if I click this, it's going to take us to the ISOG link, where you can look at the chromosome and the location. Let it populate here for a second. It's not. Hold on. Give me a second here. Let me try to do it again. Bear with me. All right, let me try to expand these fields. Hold on. All right, here we are. So here you see the sequence, of ACGs and Ts, right? And this little square that is highlighted yellow, that's the mutation for T dash BY 189.634. And what it's saying is that it's A, and in my kit it changed to T. Let me click it. Here it is. T-BY 189.634, and allele went from A to C, as you could see. A to C, mutation. A to C for BY 189.634. All right, and it's right. Oh, look, there's a little flag for it. BY 189.634, location 296.7016 to 296.7016. It's a specific spot, right? It's a specific spot, and it went from A to C. Okay, that's all it is. So in that ancient sample, when they looked at it the first time, they saw a mutation that denotes the change that classified it as T dash FT13419. Hold on, let me switch. Yes, so they had already seen that mutation for T dash FT13419. They can't come now and say, oh no, it disappeared. They may have looked at it again and not seen it and identified an earlier one, but no, it's already settled. It's already been seen. It was identified in the test already. You can't unfind it. It's like I said, the analogy of the island. If you found a human fossil in that mythical island that no humans were believed to have been in, it was already found. You could keep digging and not find another one. That's fine. It's already been found. And that's all I'm saying. Anyhow, they'll keep lying, keep contradicting, and keep changing the narrative. And as you know, this sample, part of what makes it, to me, more controversial is that this is an ancient Israelite. This literally is an ancient Israelite that the fossil wasn't from 4500 BC. It was from 600 BC. It's in the right time frame, correct burial method, and it's just not the haplogroup that they picked as Jewish, right? And there's a couple of other archaeological sites in Israel that have Y haplogroup T that basically have been scoffed at as well. I have another video about Tel Abel Beth Maha, where they found Y haplogroup T. I forget the mutation that one has, but it's carbon dated to the correct time period. It's in a biblical city, and they found a first temple jar or ossuary that they made this article about, toting it as the first Israelite ever found, which is not true. It's not true, because Tel Abel Beth Maha would be the earlier one in a biblical site that literally, the biblical story in 2 Kings talks about the story of the wise woman at Tel Abel Beth Maha, And everyone in that story was an Israelite. If you look up that verse, that Bible story in 2 Kings. So, David's general that was persecuting that rebel that was Jewish. The rebel was Jewish. Everyone in the city was Jewish. Like, that's a bona fide ancient Israelite. There's no argument. But they'll never say that. They'll push the other one that's a different haplogroup, and even though it was found later. Anyhow, I just did this video to try to explain why this can't be, and probably won't make a difference or matter, but, there it is. Thank you for listening or not. All right.